and welcome to the St. Pete by Night Entertainment Network. My name is Kent, also known as Michikent on all social media, and this is After Dark, the behind the scenes program of St. Pete by Night. St. Petersburg by Night is a massive multiplayer 5th edition World of Darkness Chronicle set in the city of St. Petersburg, Florida, involving Vampire the Masquerade, including Hunter the Reckoning, and including Werewolf the Apocalypse. But because this is After Dark, this isn't about any of that. This is actually about the behind the scenes stuff. This is talking about all of that and might include some of that. But this isn't about the game, like the in-game stuff. This is talking about the stuff that makes the game possible. We talk to content creators, we talk to writers, we talk to players, we talk to storytellers, we talk to people who create things around the game, like dice makers and artists. We talk to all kinds of individuals who have made this game what it is and continue to keep the gears grinding and turning and going and, moving and shaking. And I'm excited to say that we have quite the mover and shaker, in my mind, as a guest here tonight with us. But we're going to talk about that in a second, because if you like what you see here, you should go follow St. Pete by Night on all of the social media you see listed up above there and in the description of the video to stay tuned on all of the cool things we have involved with St. Pete by Night, because we post a lot of content on all of those social media platforms. Also, why not just become a part of our community? Because you could follow that Discord link and become a part of the St. Pete by Night community, because we have lots of community activities going on all the time, including one that's happening right now as this program is airing, a Survival Saturday, where they're playing survival games in the community as we speak. And you could be playing those games as you're watching After Dark right now with members of our community. But really, you should be paying most of your attention on After Dark at this moment, because our guest tonight is the one, the only Vyn Vox, who I am so excited is here. Vyn, please, if you would, introduce yourself right now.
Oh my gosh, hi. I'm Vyn at Vyn Vox VA on all the socials, except Blue Sky. That is vynvox.com. That is also my website. I'm a voice actor and a tabletop person, and I'm just so thrilled to be here. My goodness.
I am so thrilled to have you here, because you have really made such an impact on the World of Darkness community in my mind, because I hear your name in circles of the World of Darkness community, because your voice is being heard around, not only in World of Darkness, but just in the gaming community as a whole, because of the work you do in animation, because of the work you do in video games. You're just starting to get out there. You're making an impact in the gaming community at large. And now you're starting to guest star on all kinds of gaming projects and World of Darkness projects. And I guess I would want to start by asking, how did you even discover TTRPGs? Like, when did they even, come into your life as a whole?
Oh, gee. I guess I can dissect that first from I guess we can work backwards. The G, gaming. I've been gaming all my life. I remember my first Game Boy, Game Boy, then my Game Boy Color all the way through handhelds and stuff. Uh, RP, I've been role playing since middle school. Catch me in the forums, catch me on Gaia Online. All the way back, Bartontown, let's go, baby. The TT tabletop, I think started maybe senior year of high school. I got to play 3.5 for the first time, and then I was told never to play Dungeons and Dragons again. And then that just happened to roll back into my life by the time of the Adventure Zone, which got me back into tabletop in general. And then I saw, I think it was either the second season of the Adventure Zone happened, or it was the Critical Role Monster Hearts guide when I realized, oh, there's other tabletop role playing games, and went from there. One of my friends said in passing, "Oh, you remind me of a Toreador," and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is that? And 2019 is how I got into Vampire. I had skipped an undergraduate dinner with my classmates because we were graduating to stay home and play Vampire for the first time, and it's just been magic ever since.
You have touched on so many things that I can't even catch up because you mentioned the Adventure Zone, which just sent off, fireworks in my head because we could just go on a diatribe about
Yeah,
that.
we
The McElroys, the Adventure Zone, Taco, like, let's go. We could talk all night about that. And then, you know, Critical Role, obviously, there's an entire podcast dedicated to that. I'm
yeah,
not going
yeah,
to even
yeah,
go
yeah,
off
yeah,
on
yeah,
that
yeah.
diatribe. But okay, so let's start with the Dungeons and Dragons experience because we do talk about TTRPGs. We'll dive into World of Darkness in depth. But what happened with that TTRPG experience initially that kind of set you off with the 3.5 that said don't get into TTR or don't go down that again? What happened there with that experience that made them kind of put you off TTRPGs for a while? I'd be curious
I
about
mean,
that.
it wasn't a choice of mine in particular. It was being raised in the South and going, but it's the old satanic panic. Oh, you're casting spells and such, which we all know, like I'm
Right.
clearly magic. But that kind of kept me down from it. And then, like I said, the podcast, like I kind of snuck back into it with playing with friends online and on Discord, which I do appreciate the online community being for what it is because being living in a small town, rural, there's not a lot of people to connect with. When you do, is great in itself, but having people to reach out to and like experience new things with was really a great starting point and touch point for me personally.
That's been a huge, I think, opportunity for a lot of people has been the online option. I know growing
Hmm.
up for me, and I'm absolutely dating myself here, that wasn't an opportunity. You had to meet people in person, and even gaming stores were few and far between. So the opportunity to meet people, if you didn't know somebody, you really were on your own. And I love that,
Hmm.
especially with the panini, the pandemic, whatever you want to call it, gaming really did take off, and online gaming especially took off to the point that we have things like Start Playing now, where you could
Hmm.
sign up for games, and the online communities have exploded to the point now that you can't swing a cat without hitting 30 online gaming communities that you could sign up for. Now, how healthy those communities are varies, but or how inclusive they are varies, but at least the opportunities are there, and it's
Yeah.
really easy to at least get your foot in the door and start experimenting with that. But I'm so glad that, especially coming from a rural southern community, that opportunity was available to you, because I'm sure there are plenty of people in the past who wanted to get involved or were interested initially but then got put off from it and never got the opportunity to return. So
Yeah.
yeah. So what was your first D&D class that you experimented with in that initial kind of dive into D&D? Do you remember that first character, that first
Hmm.
experience? Tell me all about that.
I played a half elf ranger. Her name was Mafanwy Barenbrook. She went by Barenbrook. Uh, I had very shitty rolls, except one good nat 20 that exploded someone's leg with a crossbow shot, and we kind of just made it her thing.
Okay, okay. So what was it that brought, how did you get back into it? So you said the podcast, but when did you actually discover your first community and your first game back after discovering the podcast? Like what was that first community like, or how did you seek it out?
uh, Coincidentally, I was looking on a casting website and someone was looking to do a D&D podcast. And even though that podcast didn't necessarily jump off, we played almost every night, like just doing one shots with each other and just scrambling for different and new things to the point we were just doing voice RP for the hell of it. Wasn't necessarily a tabletop game. We were just playing around in character and just having a blast. So I think that's where that happened. Um, we also with that group tried a podcast that didn't happen either. Uh, but Yeah.
Well, that's a great transition to talking about the voice acting as well. What made you, or what inspired you to pursue a career in voice acting? Was there a previous theater background, or was it just something that you felt you had a knack for and wanted to try to do?
Well, I did high school theater. I took one college class as a prerequisite because I had to. Um, but that was improv and I think it was set building. But I had been like aware of voiceover as a thing since like the early days of anime. Uh, on Tumblr, like Homestuck as a comic and people doing fan dubs of the comic, and knowing that like the voice actors of today were the fan dub people of yesterday, like the people I were already fans of, seeing them like now making it as certain in certain roles and in places, like really inspired me. And honestly, I didn't intend to take voiceover so seriously. I also started doing little fan dubs and fan projects until there was a casting call I saw on Twitter, and they were like, "Hey, we want this certain demographic or this certain type of person for this role, and we'll give you equipment for it." So I was like, "Okay, I'll just take my little shot. It'll be nothing." So I did, and they sent me an XLR mic, an interface, a mic shield, and that was the podcast "How I Died." I played. Oh, I forgot my little doctor's name, but they were like little antagonists for that season. It's always super fun to think about. And from there, I just kept updating my equipment with more roles and stuff. And now I have my closet acoustically fitted with new like foam and treatment and all that kind of stuff. And I've recorded for like professional things, which, NDA, but I think one of my favorites are I still surprised for Mattel, their Barbie YouTube show uh, was just in there, clocked out of work, came home, recorded remote for someone in LA, and then there it was in my face, and I still can't believe that happened.
Yeah, that's an
Um,
amazing credit that's on your resume. That was one of the first ones that popped out to me that I was absolutely stunned by was that Barbie project, and I think that's absolutely stunning and wonderful and so cool. What a feather in your cap to have, but also well deserved because having, I mean, just listening to your voice now, you can see the range and the work that you've put into it. Even just talking with you on this casual basis, like you have such control over it. Now, one of the questions that came from our community was, what setup did you start with for recording and what kind of improvements have you made over time? Like you said, you got the foam and you were making upgrades, but what was your initial setup like?
my good, if I want to be honest, my first microphone was a Logitech headset because um I don't want to trigger anyone, but Broadway Carcat was like, "This is the mic I use to record," and I was like, "That's what I want." So it started with a Logitech headset. Then I had a Blue Snowball. I If we want to be original, my first like paid thing was done on a Blue Yeti on Fiverr. Don't do Fiverr, y'all. Love yourself. Please think of other pay to play platforms for that. Just don't do Fiverr. I After that was the Audio Technica 2020, and then from there I got a Rode NT1A, which a lot of people don't necessarily think about when it comes to studio quality microphones. It's a solid mic and very decent for $150. Like th- I'm recording professionally with a less than $500 mic. You get what you get. And then my interface, I've gone from the Scarlett. I don't like the Scarlett interfaces. I've had a Behringer, like one of the simpler ones. They're great for streaming. And then I currently have a Volt 276, 2 in, 2 out.
How did you go about your upgrades and updates? Like, what did you focus on first originally, and then what did you move on to? Like, what were your priorities? What was your order of priorities for upgrades?
When I was young and stupid, I thought the microphone was the best thing to upgrade first. And honestly, it's your recording space. If you're not going to sound great if you have an untreated area. You're going to have the echo, you're going to have that tinny sound. So you're better off like buying the proper sound capabilities. Honestly, foam isn't even that great unless it's super thick. I have 3-inch thick foam now, and a sound dampening blanket, which does extremely well. I have all my plushes in different corners as bass traps. So I have people looking back at me, but I'm also having fun. Uh, but
You have an audience at
yeah,
all times.
truly, truly. But I would treat my space first and then go from microphone to microphone. The Audio Technica 2020, I think I said, it was really pretty nice for what it was. Um, Back then I had like a windshield. It was like a kind of encasing around it because I was still in my room, like just sitting at my desk recording those lines. And the audio team for that made me sound just as quality as the main character, who was also the writer. Shout out Vince DeJohnny. We love you here. But that was it's still surreal. Like, I can't believe I'm at the space where I am because a little side story. And I made a little a skeet about this earlier this week about passion projects don't necessarily mean unpaid. As long as you can give somebody something and trade those things, your talents could literally shape someone's career. My one of my earlier audio dramas, the writer and director couldn't afford to pay anyone, but she still offered services, and she wrote and edited my very first like official demo reel. And that's how I got picked up by my dream agency. Like a whole year before I was even considering applying to them, they were like, "Hey, we heard you. We thought you were great. Da da da. We were like, if you could freelance for us." And I was like, "Oh my god!" So yeah, and that wouldn't have happened if someone wasn't as generous as I was, like committing my time for something. And I love the project still. Like Demonic was great. It's still like in the works and working, but I wouldn't have had my start if it wasn't for Steph.
Well, and that's like we talked about with Rachel Wilkinson about the Port Saga project was really much a passion project that really launched a lot for her and got her, connected with Justin Achille and got her career really rolling.
Hmm.
And so
Hmm.
that's very, very true that these passion projects do make connections. St. Pete is a passion project of mine, and now I get to talk to people like you, and that's a fantastic thing. And it's absolutely true that these things that if you invest into unpaid isn't necessarily, you know, doesn't mean non-rewarding. There are
Hmm.
rewards that come with it if you invest in it, and I absolutely couldn't agree more. That is so so well said. Another question from our community: what exercises do you go through to keep your voice in shape for all of your work? Because I know it can be a very taxing process, but you also kind of
Hmm.
always have to be, ready or working on it. I know that there have been, some voice workers or people, Broadway workers, who say they have to take rest days, but I'm sure you have to kind of stay in shape or stay warmed up even on off days to a certain degree, or have to be
Hmm.
always working a little bit even when the work is slow or off. What do you do for it?
That baseline is stay hydrated. Like as long as you're getting your amount of water, you don't have to worry about mouth clicks or anything. And if you do have mouth clicks, that's just lemon juice. That is Listerine strips. That is a green apple. That's a little side hack for that. But also like resting, taking care of your physical body because you can't do all of those things, even though it's just like mainly your throat. There's a lot of physicality that comes into voiceover that people don't think about. Because you hear that punch, someone is likely taking a swing or taking a kick or like making sure they are screaming properly and not damaging their vocal cords, which is a whole nother sidebar that I can't teach necessarily. But um, in the booth, like before I even like get to auditioning and whatnot, you have like your tongue twisters, your lip trills, a couple hums, like from the very bottom of your range all the way up to the top is what I usually do. Um, it's pretty quick. I've also like in classes have done full body stretches, like facial stretches too. All of that really does help. And I guess another thing, role play, like tabletop and voiceover really go hand in hand on the like practice spectrum because if you can't tell, I talk to myself a lot. I'm a Malkavian main. Whenever I'm trying to figure out, let's go. um, when I'm
Kindred
like trying to
spirits, pun intended.
exactly, let's go. Um, I practice a lot of different things and motivations, and that's why I think my characters are so fun. And that kind of translates into when I see a certain character archetype or such and such. I go, okay, well, actually, this reminds me of this character, so I'm just going to play them in this area. 9 times out of 10, it works. I think it takes a lot of nerves out of it and puts more confidence into those reads. And it's all play. Like that's the best part. And the end of the day, I'm there to have fun, and it's rewarded with some money sometimes.
That does help. That does help.
Yeah,
Uh,
it does.
it does. It does. It does make it seem a little bit more worthwhile, and paying the bills is an added benefit. Another community member asked, any advice for avoiding strain and healing the voice faster when things like illness hit?
Um, I think that goes back to the hydration. Your little teas. I love a good throat coat. That is the name of the flavor. I cannot remember what brand it is, but if you just type in throat coat tea, you'll probably find it. Uh, that there's a misconception that say like when your voice you're trying to heal, you whisper. Don't do that because you're still straining your throat by like trying to whisper. You're no, just don't talk. Just keep it easy, keep it quiet, but don't like try to strain your throat trying to whisper. I am a victim of great concerts. There have been times where I was like screaming myself hoarse. I was like, wait, I am damaging my throat. I can't do this. So I have to restrain myself nowadays because if I scream too loud, that'll put me at a disadvantage for a couple of days. I remember in college, before I even was like taking this extremely seriously, I was hoarse from my I think second K-pop concert. It was embarrassing because I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be awful. Like, this is gonna suck." I'm leaving the parking lot. It turns out it was. I was Barry Manilow for my final days of undergrad. Uh, on TV2, like the local news that came by and asked us about our show, and I was like, "It's really great."
Oh, no.
But no, yeah.
I remember reading an interview with an actor who had been performing on Broadway, and they said that their doctor had actually diagnosed them like rest days, and they actually carried around a note card that said that they were on vocal rest because they literally were told they could not talk at all. Again, no whispering, no talking, no speech whatsoever, because that's that exactly like you said, like whispering is not helpful. It is not nothing. You are supposed to do absolutely nothing. So they did
Hmm.
have these note cards with basic phrases or responses on it to avoid any kind of speech. That's how necessary it was because of the lengthy monologues they were giving. It was a one man show that they were performing, and that's how much they were
Oh my
talking.
goodness.
So they needed
Uh-huh.
to actually take the entire time off from speaking altogether. So yeah, I think that's absolutely good advice of just no speech whatsoever. Makes absolute sense. Um, do you have a preference between interactive projects, animation, and audio dramas, and why?
Um, it depends. I love audio drama only because I'm aware of my range. I'm aware of the archetypes I'm convincing at, and animation and anime don't necessarily hold when there is a good brassy a thin voice, it is amazing, it is incredible, but it's not as frequent as I would like, so I don't give my hopes up often. I do still audition for animation and anime and dubbing projects. uh, Interactive, less so. I think there's more of a normal range, even though they say, "Oh, we would like anime inspired reads," or "We would like uh, TV drama," which helps me out a lot. But I love audio drama simply because it's a little bit more. I don't want to say homegrown, but it's my love. I love Port Saga, for example. I've listened to it at least 3 times, both seasons. It is my favorite series in the world. I love the Silt Verses, is another good one. I'm still trying to get through the Magnus archives. I was I was there for Welcome to Night Vale back on Tumblr, like the days, the starting grounds and stuff. So I think that's where I like, and everyone just seems a little bit more closer, and it's a more tight knit community. There is one show I'm super excited of joining. I recorded, I think, the end of last month, and I don't think the episode is coming out either in April or May. That I don't know if I'm able to say yet, but I think I've been lurking that community. It's super great, so I can't wait to join that. So yeah,
That's
audio drama.
Just keep
Final
an eye
answer.
out, everyone. I'm not gonna push you for any details, but just keep an eye out on
Yeah,
Vin's
when
socials,
it's out, I'll
obviously.
definitely say so.
Yeah, that blast is coming, I'm sure, very soon. But just keep an eye out
Hmm.
on the socials there because we're excited to see anything that you're doing coming soon.
I
What do
sh-
you think is the biggest difference between all of these like pre-prepared projects like audio dramas where obviously you get the scripts in advance and all the preparation versus the more improvisational work like actual plays and TTRPG spaces? Because obviously in the improvisational space you kind of have to react with a gut instinct. You don't get the opportunity to prepare
mhm.
your voice or to prepare with the range of the emotions with it. You have to really react in the moment. Do you find that to be more thrilling and exciting? Like what's the different preparation in your mind or in your performance in those different spaces?
I think the preparation is the same, but when it comes to actual play, there's that wrench of when the cameras turn on and you're doing the thing that things might change. There's been so many times where I have a voice like, okay, I'm going to sound like this, I'm going to act like this, and I'm going to have these little inflections. And that does not happen when it comes on. And I was like, well, I guess, and then you kind of have to like fall in love with it. I make those little tweaks until you find that like steady pace for it. Um, but I think it's the same approach when it comes to like audio dramas and such, like scripted work and actual play. Like I don't think there's really that much of a difference for me when it comes to preparing for those roles.
Do you do you get a what I'm sure there's like a different kind of enjoyment that you get out of both though. How would you
Mhm.
describe the difference in enjoyment between the two? Like what kind of enjoyment do you get out of the more prepared projects versus the more spontaneous improvisational projects?
I think for prepared, I send my lines in. I don't have to worry about it anymore until it comes back out. Actual play, the brain rot is 24/7, baby, because I'm with everybody else, and then we sit there like doing our decompression and stars, which and feeling and still talking about it. I'm like, damn, I really want to write some fanfic over this game that I'm playing that nobody else probably cares about, but I do. Uh,
And it's
like,
just
I
ongoing.
exactly. It stays there, and it's more immediate because you have like maybe a week, and it's still like miles and years away between that first section, that session, and the next. So I guess the speed is the difference between the two.
What kind of roles do you prefer to play and why? Because you've played a pretty wide range. I mean, your resume is impressive, and people can go check that out at Vyn Vox's website, of course, because it's all
Mm-hmm,
listed right
mm-hmm,
there
mm-hmm,
on the
mm-hmm.
homepage, and it is quite extensive. But what's your favorite preferred type of role to play and why?
Of what I'm cast, it's like the like medium low kind of seductive villainous type. That'll always clear. That's my bread and butter. Uh, I can do that in my sleep. It's easy. But the characters I like to do, I really like me in my regular voice, just being some little sarcastic, non-binary shit. Isn't a requirement, but most of the time they are that brand, and just I love it. They're so fun and unserious. I don't have them often, but I do shoot my shot when I have the opportunity to. So yeah, those two are right there. Uh, I that little Valley Girl bit is just the bit. Uh, is now ingrained in my body. It was a joke, and now I just can't stop doing it. It's crazy. I have a character that I miss right now that's not here. Um, I just talk the entire time, and it kills. Um, but yeah, those two in particular. That third, don't even consider that third one. But I'm really starting to realize like uh hmm I guess at the beginning I was told, "Oh, your range is so cool," and da da da, and I kind of took that high and rode with it. And then it came back from, "Okay, you're being a little too theatrical. You need to tone it back." And I kind of took that as an insult. But honestly, I remember watching a Taika Waititi interview, and someone asked him how he prepared for a certain character. He said, "My range is me," and now I'm just my range is me. Whatever I have like here, it may be a little bit lower, maybe a little bit higher, but in general, this is where I sit, and it's gotten some of my better works and one of my personal favorite performances because I never expected to, be a Barbie doll of all things. And it's just here, like I, as plainly as I'm talking now, maybe a little bit more pep and maybe like some kind of sarcastic awareness because that's how the cartoon is, like kind of like the movie. But yeah, I'm yapping now, but that's it.
Is there like a Mount Everest for you, like a role or a type or a character type that you are reaching for or working on that you want to achieve? Not like a necessarily a specific role. We will talk about that. But is there a character type that you're working on or gunning for, like a certain type of voice or maybe an accent or maybe something that you're toying around with that is on your like bucket list of something you want to achieve in your voice acting?
Oh, I mean, I want to be the villain one day. Like I don't know what kind of, doesn't matter really what series or what like genre or whatever space. Um, I didn't really get into the She-Ra cartoon, but Double Trouble is everything to me. Like I I gotta be a gender fluid shape-shifting baddie or something, like with some smooth velvety voice that sends chills every time. That's up there. That I guess that is my mountain. Um Gee, like yeah, just be that bitch that one time.
You just want to be that villain, that villain
Yes.
character that one time. What
Mm-hmm.
about like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
a particular skill, like a particular voice acting skill? Because like I know some people, they have a particular accent that they wish they could perfect, whether it's a French accent or a Cajun accent or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
or they want the ability to drop down into a very low baritone or do a really good falsetto, something that they're really trying to perfect or perform. Is there something like that that you're working on?
If I had an Eastern European accent, I wouldn't shut up. I love how that is the blame. Victor Arcane, Victor, my Olive Garden breadstick. I love him to bits, and if I had that kind of voice, that's all I want.
Okay, okay, that's a good one. That's a good one. Who do you look up to? Who's your like idol in the voiceover industry and why? Who's your number one? Or name
That'll
a few.
be
I won't
like
stick you to one because I know picking a number
I'll
one can
stick
be
to one because
impossible.
you asked me a question and I just blank out. Marin Miller, uh, who is who the voice of Athena in Hades games, was also in like a Little Witch Academia and a couple more. They have helped me on a personal like one-on-one level. They actually gave me uh free lessons because they saw my talent and believed in me, and it makes me emotional thinking about it. And they only asked me to just pay it forward. So anytime somebody asks me for things or any like perspective or help, like of course if y'all can contact me, I'll help you. Like I don't have any like I can't charge for that. Uh Out of just absolute kindness, and I just love them to bits, and I never thought I would be in such close contact to my heroes.
That's
Like
incredible.
even out just like gets me misty eyed. Um and like I said, I blanked out everyone I've ever contacted with, just left my brain. But if you do follow me, look at my social media, I'm always like retweeting, reskeeting, whatever. The little voiceover starter packs, my Twitter is mostly I don't like it, but the voiceover industry is still there. I'm always doing casting calls and like pushing information out that I would consider valuable and worth looking into. There is so many resources when it comes to voiceover. Not to make a tangent, uh, a lot of people ask, well, how do they start or where to start? I'm going to plug it because I need to. I want to be a voiceactor.com is the like perfect baseline for that. Not wanna, because I used to say that a lot, is I want to. So I want to be a voiceactor.com.
No, I'm glad
Just
that you're
yeah.
giving that plug because there are so many, especially with the internet being what it is, there's so many copycats and other resources and scams out there that'll tell you that they do what they do, and then they'll, take your money and then not deliver. So if you have a legitimate source,
Mm-hmm,
please
mm-hmm,
plug
mm-hmm.
it all the way because we get people, looking for these types of opportunities and then they get, taken for granted. And yeah, absolutely. So I'm glad to see, especially on the con circuit and in media, that voiceover artists are finally starting to get the recognition and respect that they have long deserved since my childhood. We're starting to see the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles on the con circuit going around doing autograph signings and getting to perform old scripts. We're seeing the Animaniacs out there, making the rounds and actually getting recognized and getting beloved fan, representation and everything like that. So voiceover is actually starting to get real recognition. And obviously, Critical Role has really put faces to names and voices because obviously that cast is made primarily of voiceover artists. So these people are actually starting to get represented. How long, and this is kind of an interesting question, how long do you think it will be until voiceover artists get on the awards circuit? And I mean the real awards circuit.
I hopefully in my lifetime, so I have something to look forward to. I don't know why that's not like I know we have the Annie Awards when it comes to like animation and stuff,
Right.
but I don't. We have like animated picture like at the Oscars, and I don't know why voiceover isn't even considered for those. So hopefully, I don't know when. Maybe give it another 15 years, maybe 20. I'm trying to give it a reasonable number. Um, but hopefully I'm still around to see it so I can complain about it. Uh,
Right, right, exactly. Well, that's a good thing that they're doing, though. I think a lot in media recently is that they are shining the light on a lot of the, backstage. Like, there's a lot of movies being made about stuntmen recently, and there's a lot of, movies being made about voice acting or programs being made, like, Name That Voice or things like that, where they are shining lights on these careers that have existed for a very long time but have not been given the recognition that they deserve. And I'm hoping that, yes, sooner rather than later, they do get that kind of recognition because it is such an invaluable talent and has been the voices of many of our childhoods and is very important in the video game industry, in the animation industry, even in big cinema. A lot of these big movies had voice artists in it that we didn't even realize were big names that had done so many projects. I mean, with IMDb, if you look at the number of people that did video games and movies and cartoons, have 200, 300 credits to their name that you would recognize if you actually went down that rabbit hole. It's quite
hmm
surprising, and they just don't get the recognition for it. It's incredible. Uh, how do you choose the roles that you accept in voice acting?
Uh, I guess I just look at the specs and whatever. I don't want to say whatever speaks to me, but like if it falls within my range in like portrayal, I believe in authentic casting, so I'm only looking at, a little trans non-binary, African American, and so on and so forth. The boxes that I check. Um, Not because they want a specific like a pat on the back or anything, but they want people to have the opportunities they would for their whites as counterparts. So that's what I look at. If it's in my range, I typically stay within like medium, low to low, maybe a high medium for like a male voice, which I'm still like trying to touch around for. But that's what I look at. It's not super picky. Um, I get a lot of sides from everywhere from like my agents, my management. I'm still like looking at indie projects like on Casting Call Club and on Twitter, while I'm still like not even close to being a union. So I'm everywhere, unfortunately. Or
What are
fortunately.
Well, this is a good transition to the next question, which is what are the downsides to working in the voiceover industry? Because there are the entertainment industry as a whole is kind of a minefield. I mean, you always hear the stories about the successes in the entertainment industry, but there are twice, if not 10 times as many failure stories of people who moved out to LA and didn't make it. But now with the era of online, those have probably even quadrupled because now people are getting discovered on YouTube and people are getting discovered, and now it's not even as simple as getting on a bus and moving somewhere or having that opportunity. Like now it's even more difficult to get your ground because almost anybody can try to get into these types of things. So what do you think are the downsides in this particular industry?
I do want to touch and say the downside. It was honestly what was a positive for me. If it wasn't for the pandemic, I wouldn't have flourished as I did because remote casting was at its peak a couple years ago, and gave way for like people in me, South Georgia, in my closet to record like that. The negative is it's it's a time investment. You are not going to be an instant star overnight doing this. I still work my 40 hours and I come home and do this on top of the actual play, on top of everything else. So um, the time and patience is what makes you or break you. Like you gonna have to enjoy the process. You're gonna have to get used to auditioning and auditioning being this only thing, taking classes, spending money on this equipment that might not even make it, uh, spending money on workshops and with the world being as it is, it's kind of difficult. But that doesn't mean you can't do it. There are very affordable places and or places with professionals. I like the job Red Side Studio. Great job, you guys. Does not break the bank. You're looking at maybe 50, maybe 140 for classes there, which I think is fantastic because I've seen, which I think in their right, professionals who charge upwards 500 or $1,500 for classes, and me personally, I can't afford that. But um, you do you. I think also, like you said, the location aspect is also a hard sticking point. For me, I don't know if I'm ready to make that jump to LA or possibly Dallas Fort Worth. Those are my two little areas I'm still going back and forth on. And who knows? It's highly competitive. There's people with their work now, there's still people who are lucky enough to be in that area or make those moves and thrive. So time, time, money, and competition are my three negatives right now.
What advice would you give to somebody who is looking to break into that field? Because we've got a lot of people, especially now with the ever shifting landscape of, what are you going to do with the future? A lot of people are losing their jobs or are looking for opportunities to try and make something of themselves or trying to pursue their passions or try something new. If they had a real passion for this and this is something that they honestly wanted to pursue, because there's a lot of people who want to dabble with things, but we're talking about somebody who actually had the desire to do this, what advice would you give them in starting out in this?
Just do it. Like, just go ahead and start um, with what you have, slowly work into it. You don't necessarily have to start with fan dubs. There's so, with the internet being what it is, there's so many original projects out there that you can volunteer or you can work towards. I know we've mentioned animation and interactive audio drama. Commercials, my goodness. Your life can change with one commercial, I swear to God, in terms of like what these corporations pay for usage and rights and stuff. That kind of makes my head hurts thinking about it. Audiobooks are really great right now. I personally, I am not good for audiobooks. So there you go. That's one less person you have to worry about when it comes to reading. But if you have that passion for reading and longevity, audiobooks are a decent place to go, uh, which I've tried and failed. Just not my sticking point. I don't have the patience for it. But there's There's audio descriptions. That's also a place like where people are kind of reading the action for like impaired viewers and whatnot. There are so many different aspects of voiceover that we don't think about that come into play. Um, Toys, I didn't think about that either. Like how I've auditioned for Halloween items, and I think that's the silliest thing.
Like the
And I get
cackling
annoyed
witch on
about
the
it.
doorstep and stuff
Yeah,
like
that
that.
is
That
somebody's
I
voice. That is
believe it.
someone
Yeah, there's
as the
somebody's got to
pumpkin or
record
like
that.
the yeah. Um, there's a lot. It comes into our life a lot, and you don't think about it. So yeah. Um, if there's something that interests you, start researching. You can study a lot of these things just by viewing and like taking a step forward and looking, making notes. So like if you're interested in animation, start watching more animations. What type of animation are you interested in looking into? One thing I had heard was when you watch, actually mute and turn on the subtitles, portray it the way you think it would be portrayed, then go back and listen to it and like compare and see those little changes and whatnot. Uh, yeah, if this is something you're interested in, just start. Like, there's no time like the present. The time will pass regardless, so you might as well do it.
That's amazing advice. Amazing advice. And I think that's most commonly the advice I've heard either from podcasts I've listened or from most entertainers is they say just do it. Just jump in and start and the rest will work itself out. If you have the passion for something, you just go for it and don't let anything stop you. You know, eventually you'll figure out what equipment you need. You'll make the connections you need to make, but you just have to drive towards it and not let anything stop you. Just keep pushing forward and eventually you will make it happen. And I think that's absolutely true. So fantastic advice. I want to transition now to talking about the world of darkness, which is what brought us all together here today. Before we do that, I want to talk about the giveaway we're having tonight. We are giving away an art piece from one of our sponsors, Panchi Artista. Now, if you've been in the St. Pete community for a while, we've been around for about 3 years now, and Panchi has been a member of our community that entire time. She is a very, very talented artist and has supplied artwork for many, many, many of our community members. Well, she has been gracious and generous enough to donate a black and white art piece for a character of your choosing just by watching the stream here tonight. So if you put in the hashtag Vox in the chat tonight, you could get a portrait of a character, a half body black and white portrait. It's in that middle there, that line art, the $20 value line art of a character of your choosing. It doesn't have to be World of Darkness. It could be D&D, it could be Shadowrun, it could be anything. She's just so talented she could make it happen, and you can add upgrades to it. It'll be on your dime, of course, but you can add upgrades to that. You can make it a colored art piece, you can make it a full body art piece, but you will get that $20 value on us for free by putting the hashtag Vox in the chat throughout the night here, and we will do that drawing at the end of the stream tonight. It's yours, courtesy of Panchi Artista. Thank you to them, and thank you to everybody who is watching tonight. So put in that hashtag Vox before the end of the evening to get that character artwork from Panchi Artista. So, talking about World of Darkness, you mentioned that someone came to you and said, you remind me of a Toreador. Tell me that story and how that all worked out. So they said, you remind me of a Toreador. You said, oh, what's that? That's a story. There's more to that. Like, let's follow that breadcrumb trail and take me to how that evolved into you discovering Vampire the Masquerade, your first game, your first character. Like, let's go down that rabbit hole and how you ended
Oh
up
my
part
God.
of our
Okay.
beloved Shattered Mirror Cobweb family.
All right. So, of course, I got that. Is it a compliment to be called a Toreador? I don't know. Uh, but it kind of went from there, and I remember going to like the wiki and reading about these vampires. Mind you, I was already a vampire fan. I came from middle school Twilight, Helsing the manga, Trinity Blood, Underworld, all that. I was already in vampire media. It was already in me, but not necessarily the tabletop just yet. We eventually got together. One of our friends had decided to story tell for us. I ended up playing a Toreador. I was like, what is the most insufferable name I can think of? And my sister had told me there was a character named Declan. And I was like, oh, I hate that name. It's so awful. And then I picked it, and now that is my baby. His name is Declan Yancey. That is a money sink. I have so many commissions of this blonde twink nightmare. I even have like a mutual I had cast who is the voice of my character now that like to just immortalized. I don't play them anymore. He's his own thing. He's my boy. He's gay. He likes classical music. There's a lot of interesting things about him. Uh, but it ended up being a lot, and I learned a lot from that game by all the mistakes I've made with him. I learned how to like have better motivations because I would just fall into just different different levels of bullshit because I was like, oh, that's fun. Let me see what happens over here. Oh wow, you mean his arm got taken off because he got shoved off a cliff by a ghost of a man he just fucked and poisoned? That's crazy. Uh, it just ridiculous, ridiculous. He was so unserious. But I still love him the bits. Uh, I'm trying to think what happened. There's so many things that happened to Declan. But because of that, that's how I became friends with Outstar during the there was I think it was a couple years back during an event we were talking about like they were asking about our queer characters and of course he's limp-wristed as fuck uh, and uh, if you go to I think the World of Darkness stories, he has an interview on the Instagram, interviewed by Outstar in character, which is super fun to think about. And around that same time, I actually got to interview for the community ambassador position. I knew that was going to Huddy, but doesn't matter. Uh, and like super fan. We love Huddy here.
Right,
I can't
absolutely.
wait.
Obviously, past guest of the show, friend of the show, Huddy.
Yeah,
We have
friend
adore
of
her.
mine. I
Absolutely
just crawled
adore
out of a
her.
recording session with her today.
Adore her.
But yeah, and it just happened that way, and we just stayed in contact, and it was just really weird to come full circle, and just the people I have watched, because of course, I got to watch LA by Night and be inspired by Cynthia Marie. And then I met Cynthia Marie last year at a Darkness Emergent Vegas, who helped me with the influencer program, which is super fun. And like, I'm at the point where I'm meeting my heroes and being, I still can't believe me, Vyn Vox, as a person in World of Darkness. Um, it's crazy. But yeah, it just started with the kick your cur off with a blonde twink. That's all you have to do. That's the Vyn Vox strat.
Well, and this goes back to what you said, even about the voice acting. You found something that you were passionate about. You invested in it. You didn't let anything stop you. Those connections happened, and here you are. You know, you are a mover and shaker, like I said at the beginning of the episode. You are meeting these people because you were so passionate, because you drove and didn't let any, you didn't stop. You did not stop. And now you are ingrained in the community, you know, and it's a wonderful thing. And I'm so happy to have you here because of it. And it doesn't matter how long you've been involved. It doesn't matter. I've been involved 30 years and I'm still just getting, like, I'm just getting to this point, but I don't care. It's just a nice thing to see for anyone. Like, I'm happy to see anyone's success in this because this is a thing that it's always been the little game that maybe could. You know, World of Darkness
Hmm.
has always been the community that has had its trials and tribulations, has had its reputation flawed and then recovered and then flawed and then recovered, and we talked about this a little bit before we went on the show. Like, it's had its ups and downs, and to see it still thriving to this day, to see it still attracting a new audience, to see it still bringing in fans, like, that is the best thing I could have ever wished for it. And I am so happy for all of your success, and to see you know, a new person coming into it and thriving at it just thrills me to the core. So let's talk about Malkavians. Let's talk about our beloved Shattered Mirror. What is it about the Malkavians that calls to you? Why are you a Malkavian main? What is it about the clan? What is it about our beloved Cobweb that speaks to you specifically?
I think it is the cobweb speaking to me. Uh, just kidding. Uh,
We get you.
which I
We'll
wanted.
get you eventually.
I will say though, preface, I do love Malcave. I think that's the clan I've played the most. Thin Bloods are also, if anybody knows me for anything, it's how vocal I am about Thin Bloods. And
We
if I can
actually
put those
did get a
together,
question from Miss Magitech about your love of Thin Blood, so I was going to follow up with that and ask
hell
you
yeah.
about that. But
Um, I it falls into that to answer your question, just that the V5 archetype of being soothsayers and like the oracle types with that touch of madness, quote unquote, but not necessarily being ableist. Um I've heard like from people I respect as role players, they say they have trepidations with playing Malkavians that they want to be, ableist or incorrect in a portrayal. And if you just take it as someone who is overwhelmed with oversight with a quirk, it makes it easier. Um, and I've seen played with amazing portrayals of Malkavians. Going all the way back to Port Saga again, I love Titus Reed. What an amazing
incredible.
portrayal. Dane Dane did that shit.
Oh,
I loved.
incredible.
Yeah, not to circle like too much around it, but I think that's a perfect one. Like he is so razor sharp and still hears the music and faces the music. Ha ha ha. And it's just amazing. And I Auspex is my favorite discipline. Um my favorite power though is awe. If you go on Tumblr, if you look for Auspex, that's me. If you haven't seen me lurking around, that is my tabletop mostly vampire account. Because of the pun, I thought I was hilarious. Uh, but yeah, they're so fun and so varied. And I there was, I think, a Vera commission that this Mount Primogen was just in a hockey jersey. I don't know what they're called. Just plain as ever. I was like, that is the most terrifying man I've ever seen in my life. The more normal, the more like there's something like just waiting in the corner. But
Oh,
they're
absolutely.
mm-hmm.
The ones that are
But
crazier on the outside are the ones that you can be like more comfortable around. The ones that look just normal are the ones you should be the
mm-hmm.
most terrified of.
Mm-hmm. 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 Like a reverse a poison dart frog.
Yep,
Like
exactly.
mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, Crafty in the chat says Jason Newberry. Perfect example of a terrifying Malkavian that you should absolutely be frightened of. But yeah, so let's talk about Thin Bloods then, because I would be doing a disservice to our friend of the show, Miss Magitech, if I didn't bring them up. She said you have a love of Thin Bloods, and I have also recently discovered a love of Thin Bloods myself from my beloved Spud, who I play on Rage Across Tampa. Talk about Thin Bloods. What is it about Thin Bloods that called to you? Because there was a lot of kind of, you know, back and forth about Thin Bloods, especially with how featured they were in 5th edition, how much 5th edition kind of leaned into Thin Bloods and kind of strayed away, and some say watered down the older vampires and really put a lot more emphasis on Thin Bloods, which I personally didn't mind because it's showing that there is more emphasis on the future of vampires and less emphasis on the past. But what is it about Thin Bloods that spoke to you?
Well, I did see that question on Blue Sky, and interesting enough, mutual friend is the reason I fell into them. Gaming FTL Josh, our social media manager for the Chinese room doing Bloodlines 2, he played Sean in Stitch of Fate, and I was like, who is this crafty, devious little man? I love him. I love his stupid little mouth, and I love him getting in trouble and just giving lip to these older vampires. And I didn't think much about Thin Bloods as a clan until like I started looking into them because of his portrayal of Sean, and how much I identify with them as a minority in all kinds of spectrums, and being what people or like the OSR Grognard types don't necessarily enjoy seeing in like tabletop advancing. I feel like the new generation, the new bloods, even though I'm getting older, like there's more new people in the back. I'm older millennial now, but just being the woke nightmare, being a herald of Gehenna or a sign, I'm like, yeah, that's fine. Also, I made a real ranty tweet that became a t-shirt on Queen's Court Games if you want to check that out, where it says, I'll be your Gehenna. Uh, this is the truth. Like, I'm going to be here no matter what. I don't care if you see me as an end time for your favorite little pastime or the end of vampire society. It is what it is, and I'm here. I love Thin Blood Alchemy as a concept. I wrote one little an alchemy spell, water into wine, which just turns piss into drinkable blood. I thought that was hilarious. I also have some in the pocket called BBL, which is called Better Blush of Life, and a couple more. I think we have one called Ohio Riz. Me and my friend are coming up with. We want to make a whole series of alchemy homebrew called The Alchemist Cookbook. I don't know when that'll come out, but that's something I have in the works. And they're just fun. I love clawing. Uh, I think that's the difference between like most players or like V20 players. As I enjoy clawing from the bottom and clawing my way up. I played a character, Gideon Greer, who was a Camarilla Thin Blood of a Ventru prince who was pushed so far out of society and then made their way back, um, which was daring to say the least. And I just love, like, almost like Malkavians or any other clan, you can play them however you want. There's so many different flavorings and like things you can go through or play opposites and not necessarily be in Teebrew and just go balls to the wall. And I think that's what I enjoy about vampire in general. You're not really locked into a certain archetype or a class or playbook. Uh, it, the world is your oyster in
Well,
darkness.
and that's something that's fun that Justin Achille actually brought up was that was kind of the intention, especially for fifth edition Vampire, was to have that feeling. And I felt it in older editions as well, was that you are supposed to have that feeling of everything's against you, that you are the lowest rung of this massively unreachable ladder. Like you're supposed to be starting at the bottom. And a lot of people, obviously in the game and in the older editions wanted to start much higher up. They wanted to buy their generations up or they wanted to, be a more powerful vampire. And fifth edition made that a lot more difficult or nigh impossible. But the emphasis was always on being the low man on the totem pole and the game being that everything is set against you and that it is like this really impossible world to make a dent in, and that's the challenge
Hmm.
of it all. And you're right, Thin Bloods have it. That's hard mode. I tell everybody in our community and in our game is if you want to play a Thin Blood, you are playing on extra hard mode because everyone hates you. Even your fellow young vampires hate you. You are the lowest of the low of the low. Like even Cadiffs spit on you and they are low as well.
For
And I
free?
yeah, right. And it's like it is the hardest of the hard mode, but that is the fun of it, isn't it? Like I think
Hmm.
that Vampire and World of Darkness is the most masochistic, maybe on the level of Call of Cthulhu, but like one of the most masochistic role playing games ever. Like you must want to be punished to play these games because this is all about being tortured. These games are all about being traumatized and
Personal horror is
tortured.
on the tin.
It is. And so like you're playing a Thin Blood, you must really want to call your storyteller mommy or daddy because that's coming to you hard. It's coming. And like, yeah, I love it too. Like I think hard mode is the way to play. Like if you want to go into these games and you're expecting it to be easy, why are you playing this system? Like personally go play
Hmm.
D&D. Go play a game where you are supposed to win because in World of Darkness you are going to lose eventually even if it's not on screen. That's my philosophy. It's like you're going to lose eventually. There is no happy ending in World of Darkness. That's my belief. But yeah, that's a really interesting, and I couldn't agree more about the philosophy about Thin Bloods. It's like it is hard mode, but that's what makes them lovable, and that there
Mm-hmm.
is a wide range of possibilities and a wide range of paths to go down. Like they're not locked in any specific category, and that you can change it up. The fact that you
Mm-hmm.
can with any at any time change up what discipline you're playing with based off of what blood you drink, or that you
Mm-hmm.
can mess with formulas to try out something different, or that you can experiment with stuff, or you can invent something new, is really cool. Whereas with your typical vampire, you're kind of set on a path, and in fifth edition,
Mm-hmm.
more than any of the other editions, you're really locked into a path. They didn't really give you mechanics. Now we've homebrewed some mechanics to change that a little bit, but you are kind of locked into whatever you buy. That's what you have, and that's all you have. And maybe you can pick up some other disciplines if you expand your menu. But otherwise, you're kind of locked in. And I think that's very cool reasoning as to why to play a Thin Blood and why Thin Bloods are underrated and should be more beloved, because I do love me a good Thin Blood, and I think that's fun. Now I want to talk about your favorite lore character, because this required some study on your behalf, because fifth edition didn't talk about Sasha Vikos. Fifth edition, in
Yeah,
fact,
they didn't.
ignored Sasha Vikos quite a great deal. So you must have dug into lore. You must have fallen in love with the game and the setting. Quite a big deal to have discovered and learned as much about Sasha Vikos as you did, to have picked them up as a favorite character. Kane's Angel, Sasha Vikos. Let's talk
Listen,
about this, because Sasha Vikos is a very sometimes polarizing, but also very interesting and very in-depth character. Tell me the story about how you discovered Miss Vikos and how you fell in love with this particular character, and what it is about her that appeals to you.
I hate to be a disappointment. I am such a lore baby. Everything I've heard about certain characters have been in passing to someone who was bragging about the lore. Like I unfortunately uh was put off for quite some time because people would make those inside jokes and like I would say sling their lore dick around. Like I get it. This is a very expansive game, something you would have to like put time into. And I'm illiterate. I can't read. But I did hear about this one Samisi that threw a dick on somebody's head. I was like, that's great. I want to know more. And it's a Mitzi who's hot. But honestly, I'm welcome to learn more. I hate to be a disappointment.
Not a
But
disappointment at
of the
all.
I feel so because people who have a favorite character go hard. They are ride or die. I had a friend who loved Beckett from hell and back. We all do, but like the
My son's
way
named after Beckett.
that's so cute. To the point that they were either they're rewriting the Book of Nod or one no, the the diaries with just like their own interpretation and like their characters and whatnot. So I can't touch it. Um, but no, I think Simisis are great. They are terrifying in their own way. I just have a very shallow understanding, and from what I've heard of Sasha, I was like, that's super cool. And I've just realized that I named my character after them because I'm playing a character named Sasha tomorrow.
Well,
I didn't
I
even realize. Uh,
I will
I was like,
happily give you a crash course on VTM lore, because I think
please
that is one
do.
thing that is very intimidating to a lot of players. And I think it doesn't need to be as intimidating as it is. I think that lore is meant to be explored, but shouldn't be necessarily as upheld or as terrifying as it is to people. People think that it is a stone wall that is meant to be crashed into, and I don't think it needs to be. I think it shouldn't be as intimidating as it is, but it should be fun, and it should be gradually explored over time through play and through experience. But it's it's deep, and it's a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
It's a
yeah. And
lot.
I, if anything, I am proof that you can make it this far into like the gaming community without having to be like super deep into it.
Absolutely.
Like
But Sasha's, oh
five
man,
years.
Sasha's,
Yeah,
oof.
I know. I know.
Sasha is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. But I love that. I love that. She's a very unique character, and she's one of the longer lasting characters, and actually is very entwined with Beckett in the lore as well. So she's kind of the one of the poster children for Zemitzi, for good or bad. And it's her story is fascinating, and I love it. I think she's an outstanding character to model after and to yeah. But interesting choice. So what do you have in terms of experiences with World of Darkness? Like what would you say is one of your favorite experiences that you've had so far?
Um, I think my favorite experience has been the one I still cannot believe happened. The World of Darkness, YouTube. I played uh Riot in Hunter's Garage. Uh, that's where I got to actually play with Outstar, with Huddy and a couple other more community friends. But that's where we like finally like, meshed together, and it happened. I remember when Alex Ward guested, and I was a little too nervous to like play my little bitch, and he was like, "Oh my god!" But that was that was crazy. I've been, of course, a couple times, and then on the channel more with one shots and such, but also on Rolling Nomads, on in the Huddyverse, and like Are We Dead Yet, which started as a a full Thin Blood Chronicle. Now there's only two of us that are Thin Bloods. Crazy story. We just started Cradle of Liberty. The prologue came out, I think, either last week or earlier this week, and that has been an experience as a role player, and just getting to be a part of this community. It's so much smaller than like other tabletop counterparts, and I think that's what I enjoy because you get to meet everyone. Um, the egos aren't as inflated when it comes to like other communities and fandoms because everyone is kind of like at that base level and just super sweet and willing to help. And it's just been a blast from start to finish. Well, finished, start to now.
Absolutely. Uh, what did you hear? Did you have any kind of like preconceived notions, or have you heard anything that's made you kind of second guess or question being involved in this community? Because I've heard, people hear about the bad reputation that World of Darkness has had, and it's made them avoid it for a while until they, had the good experiences that made them feel more comfortable. Did you ever come across anything like that or encounter anything like that in your experience so far? As limited, and I say that with quotations because I'm
Yeah, I
so
know, I
glad that it,
understand.
but have you encountered anything like that in your time? And I'm hoping not, but have you encountered anything
Honestly,
like
I
that?
haven't. I think
Good.
starting so insular, like starting with just like my friends and a Discord server and just playing there. It wasn't until like I started like coming into actual play stuff 3 years ago that I start to like hear the reputations or like rumors and stereotypes of certain games that didn't affect me coming into WoD in particular. And I'm lucky to have that experience.
Good. Yeah, I know that there are many members of the community who have worked very, very hard to try and work those elements out and try and really make the community the welcoming place we all want it to be. But a game like this, that does focus on a very monstrous element of role playing, a very predatory element of role playing, definitely calls to a certain element of people and can bring out certain elements within a personality. And obviously, a, certain role players can turn that off once the game ends. They can call upon it and then turn it off, knowing that it's just a game. But then other people struggle with that. Um,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
so speak more to that. Like, have you ever, how do you work with that as a role player? Like playing the monster and not letting it affect you. Like, there's talk of bleed. Like the Bloodstained Love actually has an entire section in regards to bleed
Hmm,
and
hmm.
how bleed can be a good thing, but it also can potentially be obviously a bad thing. There's been big discussions about how it can be a bad thing and how it's affected people's real lives and been problematic. How do you handle that with your gaming experiences and your role play?
Communication. Like, first and foremost, making sure everybody knows at the end of the day, this is just a game. Yes, we can be or have been horrible people, but it's in character. I am not mad at you. Like, you know that I'm not mad at you. If we need a time, if we need to break and like renegotiate a scene or just say, hey, how do you feel about such and such, and like restart, that's fine. Um, I, for example, a character I had was a ministry who had the organivore flaw and took his feedings and sold them as snuff on the dark web. He was just a morally irrehensible character. The one of my worst, I won't say the worst, but who knows. But despite all the stupid things he did, or like the way he would goad the table, or have all these relationships or try to end relationships, we knew at the end, or when we pause and like have our decompression, that it was all for fun. Like, I don't have any ill will against you just because I said those things, or like I did these particular actions that would may have detrimented our relationship as PCs. But uh no, like, and if you take it too serious, maybe we need to take it back and say, hey, maybe this isn't the game or table for us. Of course, I've come across people who take it a little bit too seriously and like have either left games or just dissolved because uh, they took something personally. Of course, we try to work things out the best we can. Well, and luckily, it's only been home games. I hadn't had like that kind of situation arise in actual play in like shows and whatnot, because people, we have a better idea, or at least a bit more maturity when it comes to performing and being entertainers in a tabletop space. But yeah, rolling it back, communication, being open, and just making sure we have the safety tools, we have our lines and veils, so stoplight, exit O's, and what have you. Um, and I think I would, going back to mentioning like my role play days, I think I got all the emotions out, or at least like under that clear separation of Mun and Muse back when I was just typing 10K on a Tuesday before school. Um so yeah, that's what I think it comes down to.
That's fair. So obviously, World of Darkness had a very, very big history. There were a lot of splats with mage and werewolf, vampire, mummy, all these different splats. And
Mm-hmm,
fifth edition
mm-hmm,
has
mm-hmm.
been slowly rolling out. You know, we just had the release of werewolf. Previously than that, we had hunter and we had vampire before that. Looking into the future, you know, they've announced the next several supplements that are coming out, some of them for werewolf. You know, what do you think the next major release is going to be? I ask this of kind of every guest that we have on that's into playing the game. What do you think is the next thing they're planning on dropping? And if you know, don't say anything because I know that you are in with some of the folks that are in the know of things. But if you had
You
to
think
guess,
people
and
tell me things?
I don't
That's
know, I don't know who you
crazy.
talk to about
I
stuff, but like,
Um, if I had a choice, if it were me, V, you're asking me what the next I would hope for. I really want to see Changeling. Like, I really, really, really want to see Changeling happen. I've played a couple of times, not necessarily a complete a chronicle or such, but I've done a little bit of dreaming, I've done a little bit of lost, but I would love to actually take my time and sink my teeth into it and actually play a Changeling game.
so here's a question.
And
Do you want
yeah.
it to be dreaming or do you want it to be lost or do you want it to be a mix of the two? Because there are kind of people
Yeah.
who are wishing for one or the other. And with the way fifth edition has been rolled out, they've kind of been mixing some of New World of Dark or Chronicles of Darkness and Old World of Darkness in the mechanics at the very least. So we're
Hmm.
kind of wondering, like, what are they going to do story wise with Changeling? Are they going to do a Dreaming release, or are they going to do a Lost release, or both, or you know, neither? What are they going to do with it? So if you had your
If
choice, what would you do?
Yeah, I would hope for a mishmash or like the possibility of playing. Honestly, everything just kind of smooths out of my brain whenever I'm asked a question. But to play like the courts and then you have like the loss of the people being replaced and everything, I think that's terrifying. And I love how like cold and chilling that is at the thought. Just ugh, amazing. But if we take like what we've seen or like the procedures between 20 and 5, I imagine there would be like some kind of crossover, at least some kind of in between, uh and that might not make everybody happy, but at least some column A, column B. um but who knows? Who's to say?
Right. Yeah, it's impossible to tell what they're going to do, but we can always hope. We can always kind of project or put out into the universe what we'd love to see, and then we'll take what we can get. But we
Hmm,
can always
hmm,
hope
hmm.
for something. So moving away from World of Darkness, we've got some kind of out of nowhere questions that the community asked, and so I'm going to ask you that: is there a character from pop culture or media, just as a whole, from your voice acting that you would love to voice, and why?
Ooh, that is a question. Um, hmm. I've said it before, and my stance has changed since then because I would want a trans woman to voice this character. But if I could have any opportunity, that would be Grell Sutcliffe from Black Butler. That is my wife, the love of my life. I don't have a British accent, so I couldn't possibly voice her correctly. But oh my, actually, my goodness, look at my desk. This awful mess. There she is. I say, wait, huh? I
Just
don't
right
keep
on
all kinds of
hand.
photos, just like right there.
Perfect.
No, but I loved her. Um, if I could amend this question and say a series, that won't happen. One of my voiceover goals or something that used to keep me going was, well, at least when Yuri on Ice season 2 comes out, I'll be there. Like the longer it takes, the closer I would be. And now it's never happening. The movie's not coming out. They're not doing a second season, so that dream is just gone. But it really was something that kept me afloat for a
Oh,
couple months at a time.
absolutely. Uh, your posts about Darkness Emergent in Las Vegas look so fun. What is it like going to one of those events? That's one of our community questions. And
Well,
obviously, you went to a
it's
big one too.
my very first LARP experience was the blockbuster. I'm like, I cannot believe that. It was not my first rodeo, now it's gonna be my second. But yeah, and that just happened because I had uh an offer from the hotel brand I use. They were like, hey, we have these little timeshare options. You can either go to Vegas or go to, I don't know, I think Orlando or something. I was like, Vegas, what a coincidence. I wanted to go to Vegas because all my friends had a great time in Chicago. So it was peer pressure that brought me there, but it was so much fun uh, to just and vibe and just learn the LARPing mechanics. And that used to be my last point when I first started role playing. It's like, well, at least I don't play Dungeons and Dragons. Started playing Dungeons and Dragons. At least I don't LARP. If I don't LARP within the next 5 the next 5 months, I am going to explode. So luckily, I did get to have the opportunity, and I'm doing it again in May. If we want to talk about it, Darkness Emergent, Los Angeles is going to be, I think, May 21st to the 25th at the Biltmore Hotel. I am not sponsored. Actually, I am sponsored, but
No,
we're not talking about
absolutely,
it.
absolutely.
I I can't wait. And I think as the announcements started rolling out, I was like, wait a second. Are we LA by night? Are we whoa.
That's
I
amazing.
love the fact that everyone, at least main cast, is reprising their roles. And I think that is so terrifying in a great way. To meet everyone, and I know the panels are going to be amazing, and like the off time is going to be like just as top tier as the role play nights themselves. Honestly, the World of Darkness LARP community is, or at least from my experience with the By Night Studios community, has been amazing. Everyone is so sweet and so kind and so helpful, from costuming all the way down to like character ties. And I think that is really important, finding your community and connecting offline before events so you're not as lost. Luckily, I had a lot of friends come my first time. So whenever I was kind of like flustered in character, not knowing what to do, I would just go see them and point and just follow and see what they're doing because they're having their own little story happening, which was fantastic to watch and just play.
What did you learn from your first event that you would advise to people who are going for the first time to like prepare or bring or have with them? So, like, you know, comfortable shoes or some, bring extra water. Like, what would you advise people going to a LARP like that for their first time to make sure they packed with them to bring?
Oh, that's you stole my answer. Wear comfortable shoes. You will be on your feet a lot longer than you think you will be. Uh, you think you're gonna be great in them heels? Just wear some flats. Like they're your costume is going to be extravagant or however you want to portray your character. Do it top to bottom. Like heels up, do what you want, but heels down, wear something that you're gonna stand in. Of course, yeah. Bring water. Um, Make sure you have all your costume pieces packed in advance because you don't know if you might forget something. Bring friends. If you can like, get your people into this cult of fun, of fun, uh, do it because it's gonna be a million times more enjoyable when you have your friends also dorking out and being vampires with you as adults. Um, that's also been like my favorite part. I'm sitting here like, wow, we are playing make believe at a big age, but it's so much fun. Um, and I think that's what I'm so excited for because I know there's so many of my like friends and like people in APs that I've uh only known online that I finally get to see in person. And that's gonna be, I think, my favorite part. It's just like uh someone you've loved from a screen being tangible and they can't escape your grip. That was my experience going to PAX for the first time, was seeing my timeline just made manifest for the weekend.
Yeah,
So
all of
always
them
that.
right there in person.
Exactly.
It's absolutely thrilling. So for our last question, I want to kind of bring things to a serious point, but only to a certain point. I don't want to get too political. I don't want to get it to anything, but it's kind of inspiring because you are an inspiring person to me. You're someone who's chasing your dream and making strides, and you gave some incredible advice, which is like go after something and don't let anything stop you. Like you are, in my mind, a success story made manifest, and you have this wonderful personality of positivity and such a great energy. But obviously, we're all going through some pretty tough times in America right now. It's not a great time to be in this country. I think all of us can agree with that. Anybody who's watching this at least can agree with that if they're living in our country right now. What do you do to kind of keep going during this time period? How do you keep the ball in the air? How do you keep on your feet and keep moving? Because both of us are in the South, especially, which is a particularly difficult place to be during these time periods, especially since it is a normally volatile place to be in a normal time. But now, with this new era of life, and that's putting it mildly, it can be even especially more volatile. How do you stay positive? How do you keep going? How do you keep your head up and keep motivated to keep pursuing the things you want to pursue and keep positive about everything? Because every day it's breaking news. Every day it's another crazy thing happening. Like how do you keep going? And like I said, don't want to get too political, don't want to get too crazy, but like what do you do to keep yourself going?
Honestly, it's this. It's still creating, it's still playing, it's still being yourself. And unfortunately, that's an active revolution on its own. It's staying true to your colors and being who you are is an act of resistance. Uh I think it's I guess it is its own masochism. One of my games currently, we are doing a Weimar era Berlin. With everything that's going on now, it's just like, oh, oof. Um,
It's
we didn't
too
expect it
relevant.
to be so point. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's crazy how history has its own touch points back and forth, and like we say, time is a flat circle. It really is. And just making some of these points or like um things that are happening fiction kind of makes it less terrifying or at least capable of of being overcomable. That's an awful way to say it, but like, just kind of trivializing it a little bit to help internalize it a little bit more and pushing through. Um, Even like before things got more terse, I used to work at a newspaper, and I'm a baby storyteller, and the just absurd things that I hear throughout the day, like working at a newspaper office, I was like, oh, that's crazy. Let me write that down for later. Uh, just, I'm not saying gamify the news, but that's one way to make fun of it and make it less painful. But also just taking breaks, enjoying your friends and family while they're here. Um, if surprise, surprise, playing vampire near constantly makes you think about death a lot. And you realize, oh yeah, you're not going to be living 100, 200 years. You need to enjoy the people in your life while they are still alive. Um, Odd tangent, but I guess that's a point to be made. So that's what I do. Uh,
That's, yeah,
I roll dice and try not to cry.
absolutely. Well, and it's gaming is community, right? Like it's
Hmm.
bringing people together. It's showing that we can still be together, and being together during terrible times is a way to share in grief, but also to share in joy and to share in positivity to help prop each other up. A tent can't stand with just one pole, right? Like you need multiple poles to hold each other up, and that's what we do. And in a gaming community, especially, I think we've become very good at that by learning teamwork, by learning that dynamic, and telling stories is a great form of escapism. And yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Like that's a great way to cope and to kind of work through this time period, and you do learn how to get through it and get through these types of trying times together. And I think World of Darkness teaches us how to deal with trauma really, really well. Because again, you have to be a masochist to love this game and to want to come back to this world over and over and over again. And so I think we're prepared for hell to come our way, and it sure is coming our way right now. So I think that's fantastic advice, fantastic truths, and yeah, absolutely. So before I ask for your final plugs and final thoughts, I want to do our giveaway. All night long, we've had this giveaway from Panchi Artista for a half body black and white art piece, which is featured in the center there, the line art at the $20 offering. You could have been in the running for that art piece by putting in the hashtag Vox all night long. And now we are going to draw the winner of that art piece. And tonight's winner is Tumultus. So, Tumultus, congratulations. You won the giveaway of the art piece. I will be putting Panchi in touch with you to get that art piece commissioned. So, that is all yours, courtesy of Panchi Artista. Congratulations. Thank you so much for participating in tonight's stream and tonight's giveaway. And yeah, congratulations on the art piece. So, Vin, first, thank you so much for participating and being here tonight and having this conversation with me. But is there anything you want to promote? Any projects coming up that people should be on the lookout for that you can talk about?
Yeah,
Nothing that
yeah,
is
yeah.
under NDAs or anything currently. But anything people should look out for, or anything that you've done recently that people can find?
Yeah, I want to throw it back. If you go to Huddy Von Swall, we just started a new chronicle called Cradle of Liberty. It is a post-One song chronicle set in Boston. I am playing a Tremere. Don't at me about it. Don't worry about it. Uh, their name is Marius Weiss. They have some very particular friends. And it has been my joy hearing people go, "Oh no," when they realize what is happening with them and the people in their own life. Um, Another project I love to highlight is the Mythic Initiative on Tiano Tales. It is a Monster of the Week game that became so monstrous that we switch over to Apocalypse Keys because we run the Monsters of the Week. Um, just it was so much fun. That table will always be golden with me. And gosh, there's so much more vampire on the way. I'm so sorry for the amount of Vampire the Masquerade you'll see me be playing actual play wise, but you'll have to deal with it.
Look at
Um
where you are right now. You think the people here are going to complain about more vampire? Are you kidding me? Like, this isn't the community to apologize for
listen,
that.
listen. I am fueled by many things.
But that is amazing, and I can't thank you enough. Like, this was a highlight for
Oh,
me.
thank
I'm
you for
so
having me.
so grateful to have you here, and hopefully we can have you back. We're hoping to have
Oh,
some
of course.
guest discussions with many of our past guests, possibly group discussions about some new releases that are coming out from World of Darkness. We'd love to have you involved in, and updates about your projects, maybe a specific rewatches of some of the projects you've been involved in, or discussions about some projects you've been involved in. It'd be great to have you back on the show, or maybe a guest appearance on maybe one of the projects we have currently going on, if you're up for
Hell
that
yeah,
at
yeah.
some point. We'd love to have that. But Fox, thank you so much for being here. You have been a wonderful, wonderful guest. We adore you here. And thank you, everybody, for watching. Go follow St. Pete by Night on all of the social media you see listed up above and in the description down below. And if you like what you've seen and you're not part of the community, go join at that Discord link down below. And go follow our wonderful guest on their social media. Go check out their website. Go support them on all of their projects, because we are so grateful that they joined us here today. But for Vyn, I'm Kent. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Have a good evening, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.